You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
All right, Black and White Sports supporters, we're going to talk about Deshaun Watson. That's right, dog. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson, the Cleveland Browns, and exactly where he stands. He's made some comments about his shoulder, and he's also made some comments about playing in a dome. The only problem is the Cleveland Browns don't play in a dome, but he comes right out and says, I'd rather play in a dome. Now, do you understand where you signed for $230 million? I've got to be real. Sometimes I think he's not very happy with his current situation, which is amazing considering how much money he's getting paid. And we'll get to that in just 1 second, but just keep in mind, this is where your quarterback stands right now. This is PFF's grades for 2023. He's right in the middle between Ryan Tannehill and Aiden O'Connell. Joe Flacco, 5 spaces higher. Baker Mayfield, 19th. Let's be real. Baker should probably still be your quarterback with the Cleveland Browns. Also keep in mind, as we go into this, if you were to cut him right now, you're looking at a $200 million dead cap hit, and you cannot get really and truly out of this contract unless you pull a Russell Wilson until after at least the 2025 season. So next year and the year after. He's played 12 of 35 games, folks. Just keep that in mind as we go through this. The Browns offseason program begins April 15th. It seems like a little more than 2 weeks have passed since they were licking their wounds from being demolished by the Texans 45-14 in a wild card playoff game on January 13. But in reality, much has transpired since then. Keep in mind, there's a lot out there floating around about him still having to do more depositions and things like that. There's still a lawsuit out there, folks. I think there may be 2 lawsuits. I know for a fact there's at least one, and that lady's not backing off. She's not. General Manager Andrew Berry elected to sign Jameis Winston to be the backup starting quarterback for Deshaun Watson. Media members, including me, who's this guy, Jeff Strudel of the News Herald, and many fans wanted the Browns to re-sign Joe Flacco because Flacco led them to the playoffs by winning 4 straight games. Not only that, but he had I think he threw for over almost 1,600 yards in 5 games? I mean, it was very impressive the way Joe Flacco was moving the ball in a very good Kevin Stefanski offense. Even worse, it showed fans what the offense was capable of if you had a good quarterback. Only in Cleveland could the identity of the backup quarterback cause so much angst. Yeah, also keep in mind, there's a lot of rumors floating around out there that Watson did not want Flacco back in the building. Why not? I mean, how much confidence do you have in your ability that you're worried about Joe Flacco being in the building? I'm just saying. What is most important is Watson is throwing the ball again and making steady progress from surgery in November to repair a fractured shoulder socket. Watson, who had a micro tear in his right rotator cuff, suffered a shoulder fracture November 12th while playing the Ravens in Baltimore. The progress report on Watson's recovery comes straight from the man himself, who in 2024 will be in the 3rd year of a 5-year contract he signed March 2022 when the Browns acquired him from the Texans for 6 draft picks. This was his QB Unplugged pod that this came from. Quote, "The situation is good," Watson said. "We're in a great spot, right where we need to be. We have plenty of time to ramp up the throwing sessions and things like that, but everything is going smooth. As long as I am feeling well and the doctors and physical therapists and everyone are on the same page, we're in a good spot." Watson did not go into details about how often he's throwing the ball or at what distance. He warned against getting information from others on social media platforms. Why? Because people like me will say things the media is too scared to say? Why do you think people are tuning in to channels like this, podcast, all these the rise of citizen journalism is a thing, Deshaun. Sorry, hate to break that to you. Though the off-season program begins in 2 weeks, spring practice won't move outdoors until May when organized team activities begin. Coach Kevin Stefanski told reporters at league meetings in Orlando that Watson could be throwing to receivers during those all-important OTAs. Quote, he's right where he's supposed to be, so I anticipate that he's throwing this spring with us. We'll see him in April, and we'll continue that rehab. I'll stay out of it. The doctors and trainers will tell me when he's ready, and I know he's doing a great job. Keep in mind, there was a doctor on one of the local Cleveland stations, and I did a video on it a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he very much anticipates Watson is going to be on a pitch count. That would worry me a bit as a Browns fan. By the way, I think there's a good shot Jameis has his job by mid-season. This has not gone well. The Browns, look, he's played 1 1/4 good games in 12. Pretty good games. I can't even just say good games. Pretty good games. My biggest issue is between him and Flacco, there was 120 yards a game passing difference between the two. That's jaw-dropping. It's like 180 yards for Watson to what was like 312 for Flacco, and now Flacco's not even on the team. And Alex Van Pelt got run out in part because Haslam didn't like the results he was getting from Watson. Well, you brought in Ken Dorsey, and he got fired by the Bills, and their offense got better. I've said Kevin Stefanski, a very good offensive coach, he's in a lot of danger if this season doesn't go well. Now, let's get to the stadium, because I find these comments really strange to be making under the circumstances. The Browns' lease on the Cleveland Browns Stadium, where they played since they were reborn in 1999, expires in 2028. There's an ongoing debate on whether the current stadium should be renovated for $1 billion or whether a dome stadium should be built on 176 acres near Cleveland Hopkins Airport that Browns owners Jimmy and Dee Haslam have explored purchasing. 50 years ago, my brother and I, well, he goes on to tell a story. Anyway, 75,000 fans showed up in really nasty weather. That's kind of what that great fan base does, is they show up in really nasty weather, and it gives them a really nice advantage, a home field advantage. I cannot imagine watching the Browns on TV and them being in a dome. But Deshaun Watson wants them in a dome. Deshaun would rather play in a dome, he said on a podcast with Avery. A dome stadium near the airport wouldn't open until 2029, which means Watson would be in the middle of a second 5-year contract with the Browns if he is to play in it. So something would have to dramatically change from right now for him to earn a second 5-year contract. Quote, Cleveland as a fan base is very tradition-like, very passionate, Watson said. Once in one way, that's hard to change. I haven't talked to the Haslams personally about the stadium, but I think they're looking at it as an opportunity to grow Cleveland with a new dome stadium. Anybody would say it isn't an advantage, especially for quarterbacks to be inside where it's warm. You're crazy. To be able to throw the ball with no wind, no lightning, no rain is definitely a key. If I had to pick, of course, I'm going to go with a dome and a new facility. He played in NRG down in Houston. My only thing is, you knew the stadium situation when you asked for a trade out of Houston. A lot of things were set up nicely, and he had a monster last season with Houston. And then he decided for what I think it was, he wanted to play for a black coach. which turned out to be a total lie. Kevin Stefanski's white. He's whiter than me. And he hasn't uttered a word because of $230 million fully guaranteed. So that was an outright lie, and you shouldn't be asking out of town over race of your coach anyway. I mean, Houston's a great town. I don't get it. Texas, I mean, it's just odd. But nonetheless, he's with the Cleveland Browns right now. And I just find it strange because at times his body language and his attitude feels like he doesn't want to be in Cleveland, which is like, are you literally only playing in Cleveland because of the money? You got to remember, he took Cleveland out of the running before the trade happened, and he only accepted it after Haslam came back and said, we'll fully guarantee the contract. And then he decided to go. He wanted to go to Atlanta. And the Dolphins were in too. I bet they're like, well, I'm glad we dodged that bullet. That's crazy. We don't know how this is going to go. As it stands right now, today, it's the second worst trade in the history of football. And one could argue if it stays on the same path, disastrous, injury-plagued path, and who knows what else is going to pop up, when you combine it with the $230 million fully guaranteed and the fact that if you had to release this cat, it would put a dagger in the franchise financially, I think it would be a worse trade than the Herschel Walker thing. It would be, no matter what, it's number two. It makes Russell Wilson and the Broncos look sort of midline, I mean, I think that's three, but you get the point. That's crazy. Well, there he is, folks. He thinks he's going to be throwing like regularly. I don't know how this is going to work out, folks. I really don't. We're certainly going to watch it. It's a massive mistake they didn't bring back Flacco. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.